She didn't bother nobody. She didn't get in no trouble. All she wanted to do was braid hair and take care of children. I know it's hard.
What starts as an ordinary evening in Avondale, Louisiana, quickly spirals into a nightmare that no parent, no child, and no community should ever have to endure. Ronica Richburg, a 32-year-old mother of 3 and a talented, well-known hairstylist, was about to have her life violently cut short in an act that would shock Jefferson Parish. The place she called home on Millie Drive, a sanctuary she had built for her children, would become the scene of unimaginable tragedy. The perpetrator was no stranger. It wasn't a random act of violence. It was someone she had trusted and loved, her former boyfriend, Lloyd El Salvador Jones. Just moments prior, Ronica had taken a customer to the backyard of the home for a service. Little did she know this small act would trigger a horrifying chain of events that would take her life in front of her children. Lloyd arrived at the home, and within seconds, chaos erupted. Ronica would be shot multiple times in the bathroom, but she would not be the only one. Her client and father would all taste the brunt of Lloyd's violence. But before we confront the moment that shattered everything, let's rewind to where it all began, because the stories that look the most ordinary often hide the darkest truths.
And Miss Richburg was a beautiful young lady and had her own hair business, and her mom, literally risked her life to save her boyfriend's husband's life. So just everything around this as a community, we're all there for the family.
35-year-old Ronica Monique Richburg was born on September 7, 1987 in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, and she remained a lifelong resident of the area. She graduated from East Jefferson High School and went on to earn an associate's degree in medical billing and coding from Herzing University. But her ambition and drive went beyond a traditional office career. She founded her own business, Nola Braid Head, creating a space where beauty met entrepreneurship. She specialized in braiding hair and providing various beauty services. Her creativity quickly became well known in the local community for its precision, style, and personal touch, which was evident in the number of people who would troop out to bid her farewell during her vigil. Friends and family remembered her as humble, sweet, and wise, someone who carried herself with grace while putting the needs of her children and clients first. Her children were her lifeline, and she theirs, a bond that makes this tragedy all the more heart-wrenching. Ronica was in a relationship with 42-year-old Lloyd El Salvador Jones from Harvey, Louisiana. Their relationship had spanned 7 years, a cycle of closeness and conflict that included both tender moments and escalating tension. They had 2 children together, ages 4 and 13. Over time, the relationship between Ronica and Lloyd deteriorated. Ronica began to experience patterns of intimidation and aggression that left her feeling unsafe. Lloyd's actions grew destructive, smashing her car windshield, breaking her phones, and damaging her belongings in attempts to assert control. His behavior spiraled into harassment and threats, leaving Ronica with the painful realization that she could no longer remain in the relationship. So she made a decision that would set off a horrifying chain of events. By the spring of 2020, after years of enduring mistreatment, she made the difficult choice to leave. Seeking refuge and a chance to rebuild, Ronica moved in with her mother in Avondale, hoping to create a safer environment for herself and her children. But Lloyd refused to accept the separation. His conduct escalated even further, intruding on her new life. He would appear at her mother's home without warning, bombarded her with phone calls, and followed her across town, even trailing her over a bridge. Despite her efforts to cut ties and protect herself, Lloyd's persistence left her feeling cornered and vulnerable. Each incident deepened her fear, and her pleas for help became more urgent as she struggled to escape the cycle of abuse. Reports indicate that Lloyd was controlling, a behavior pattern that contributed to the protective order Ronica had obtained. She had left him multiple times, but, like many in abusive or controlling relationships, returned for a combination of love, hope for change, or the well-being of their children. In the weeks leading up to the fatal incident, she accused him of stalking and harassing her, as well as threatening her family and friends. The protective order was intended to create a legal barrier against Lloyd's aggression. It documented repeated harassment, including incessant phone calls, vandalism of property like shattered windshields, and other threatening behaviors. Prior to filling the protective order, Ronica had called the police at least 3 times, but despite her pleas, no arrests were made. Yet on that tragic evening, just like the calls did not protect her, so would the order not shield her. Lloyd breached the order. He gained access to the home that should have been a haven, escalating the situation into deadly violence. Eyewitness accounts and reports from Jefferson Parish authorities paint a grim picture. On September 3, 2020, less than a week after Ronica had secured a restraining order, the situation took a deadly turn. That evening, Lloyd came to her mother's home, claiming he was there to drop off their young son, Lamar. When the door was opened to let the child inside, Lloyd immediately began asking for Ronica, his voice growing sharper and more insistent each time she was told she wasn't available. As the door was pushed shut, Lloyd forced his way inside, kicking it repeatedly until he broke through and stood in the entryway. He demanded to know where Ronica was. Her mother tried to explain that she was busy doing hair, but Lloyd was not satisfied. His determination to confront her only intensified, setting in motion a chain of violence that would devastate everyone in the house. Inside the home were Ronica, her mother, her 2 children, her mother's boyfriend, Daryl Stewart, and a client who had come for braids. Hearing the commotion, Daryl rushed to the living room to see what was happening. He could not have anticipated what was about to unfold. Lloyd pulled out a gun and opened fire, striking Daryl in the neck and arms. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Ronica and her client fled toward the bedroom in desperation, trying to find safety. Ronica darted into the bathroom, hoping to hide. Lloyd followed, kicking down the bedroom door and pursuing her into the bathroom, and there he continued his violence. In an act of brutal violence, he shot her, killing her instantly. The terror did not end with Ronica's death. Lloyd returned to the living room and continued his attack on Daryl, who, against all odds, survived despite multiple gunshot wounds. The children were exposed to the trauma firsthand, witnessing their mother being murdered and their father figure turned into a source of danger. In the midst of the horror, Ronica's mother displayed extraordinary courage. Fueled by desperation and love for her family, she leapt onto Lloyd's back, fighting to stop him. She struggled with everything she had, but Lloyd managed to break free. He fled the house, escaping in a dark-colored GMC pickup truck and leaving behind a scene of devastation. Shaking and terrified, Ronica's mother immediately called 911, pleading for help. The Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office received the call and responded without delay. Within minutes, police units were dispatched to the 100 block of Millie Drive, racing toward a scene that had already descended into chaos and tragedy. First responders arrived to a scene of devastation. They found a mother shot dead, a client injured, and a community in horror. Officers quickly secured the area and began taking control of the situation. Daryl Stewart, though gravely wounded, was stabilized and transported to a nearby hospital for emergency care. Ronica's children, thankfully, were unharmed physically, but emotionally, they had just witnessed a trauma no child should endure. From the moment law enforcement arrived, their first priority was the safety of those still in the home. Officers evacuated neighbors, secured the property, and began canvassing for witnesses. It became clear that the suspect, Lloyd El Salvador Jones, had fled in a dark-colored GMC pickup truck. Sheriff's deputies immediately initiated a manhunt, coordinating with neighboring jurisdictions and alerting state and federal agencies about a dangerous armed suspect who had violated a protective order. The local community, already in shock from the violence, mobilized to provide any assistance possible. Witnesses described the scene, and authorities began piecing together the timeline from multiple perspectives. Lamar, the 4-year-old son, had witnessed part of the chaos, and law enforcement ensured he was safely taken into the care of family members. Meanwhile, statements were collected from Ronica's mother, who had confronted Lloyd at the door, as well as from Daryl Stewart, once stabilized, recounting his version of the events. These first-hand accounts were critical in establishing the sequence of violence and identifying the path Lloyd took through the home. Sheriff's deputies also worked to obtain surveillance footage from nearby homes and street cameras, hoping to track Lloyd's escape route. The urgency of the manhunt was compounded by the fact that he had a history of controlling behavior and had just committed a violent crime in front of children. Public safety became a primary concern, with deputies issuing alerts to local media and networks warning residents not to approach Lloyd under any circumstances. Investigators quickly compiled all evidence available from the crime scene. The team processed ballistic evidence, shell casings, and firearm residue to determine the number of shots fired, the trajectory of each bullet, and the positions of the victims and suspect during the attack. The shell casings confirmed multiple shots, consistent with witness accounts that described Lloyd firing at both Daryl and Ronica, and the medical reports documented the injuries sustained. Every detail would be critical in preparing for potential charges and ensuring the strongest possible case against Lloyd Jones.
In Jefferson Parish tonight, authorities are investigating a homicide in Avondale, but authorities say it happened in the 100 block of Millie Drive. Detectives say a woman was shot inside a home. Her father was shot in the arm and taken to a local hospital. Investigators are looking for a person of interest by the name of Lloyd Jones. He was last seen fleeing the scene in a dark-colored GMC pickup truck. If anyone has any information on his whereabouts, please call the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office.
Kim Richburg spends every minute of every hour of every day thinking about her beloved daughter, Ronica Richburg.
She was sweet and humble. She didn't bother nobody. She didn't get in no trouble. All she wanted to do was braid hair and take care of children.
Ronica was a mother to a 4-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl. She was down in her Avondale home in August. The suspect, deputies say, her ex-boyfriend, 42-year-old Lloyd Jones. Ronica's mother was there when the happened.
So I just opened the screen enough where he can let LJ in the screen door.
On August 25th, Richburg said Jones came to drop off their 4-year-old son, LJ, at their home on Millie Drive. She said he asked for Ronica several times, and after Richburg didn't let him in, she said he kicked the door open. He's now accused of the victim's dad in the arm, who survived, and then Ronica.
Hard looking in the bathroom. And my child laying on that floor. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard, y'all just don't know it's hard.
Deputies are still looking for Jones. They believe he left the area. Richburg prays every day he gets caught so they can get justice for her daughter.
I wanted to suffer first. I wanted to suffer. It hurts so bad. I'm trying to keep it together, but it hurts.
And Lloyd Jones is wanted for several charges, including first-degree and attempted first-degree. Deputies are working with federal law enforcement agencies, even in other states, to try to find him right now. There's a $5,000 reward for any information leading to his arrest and a conviction. You can call Crime Stoppers anonymously if you know anything at all. That number is 822-1111.
During the investigation, authorities verified the protective order Ronica had obtained against Lloyd. This legal documentation not only highlighted his prior threats and harassing behavior, but also made the charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and violation of a protective order even more severe. Detectives noted that this order, obtained just days before the shooting, established a clear legal expectation for Lloyd to stay away from Ronica and her home. The breach of this order demonstrated premeditation and blatant disregard for the law. The manhunt itself was extensive. Jefferson Parish deputies coordinated with state police, surrounding sheriff's offices, and federal authorities issuing a BOL, or Be on the Lookout, alert with Lloyd's description and the details of his dark-colored GMC pickup. Officers conducted traffic stops, checked rest areas, and monitored areas known to be frequented by Lloyd. However, it won't be long before investigators uncover a crucial lead. On August 25, 2020, just one day after the murders, records showed that Lloyd's phone had briefly connected to a cell tower near Philadelphia Road and Rossville Boulevard in Baltimore County. This discovery suggested he had moved into a new area, giving authorities a potential trail to pursue. Law enforcement quickly mobilized, hoping to intercept him before he could slip further out of reach. Units were dispatched, and the surrounding area was combed for any sign of the fugitive. Yet, despite the urgency and thoroughness of the search, Lloyd was nowhere to be found. But sadly, the lead that had seemed promising dissolved into frustration. Once again, he had managed to disappear, leaving investigators with more uncertainty than answers. Still, despite repeated setbacks, police refused to abandon the case, determined to bring him to justice. Local residents were urged to report any sightings immediately, and tips were collected round the clock. The reward for information, set at $5,000, became an incentive for the community to assist in locating Lloyd.
Throughout the search, authorities worked to anticipate Lloyd's next moves. Based on behavioral patterns observed in similar domestic violence cases, investigators considered where he might go to hide or seek help, including friends, relatives, or remote areas outside Avondale. Federal agencies were also alerted to monitor interstate travel, ensuring that if Lloyd attempted to flee across state lines, he would be intercepted. In the days following the shocking murder of Ronica Richburg, the Avondale community grappled with a mixture of grief, disbelief, and outrage. Friends, neighbors, and local residents struggled to come to terms with the violence that had invaded what should have been a safe space, a family home. The news of the shooting spread quickly throughout Jefferson Parish, and for many it felt incomprehensible that such a tragedy could happen in their neighborhood. Ronica's family, already reeling from the sudden loss, expressed their devastation publicly, urging the community to remember her for the life she lived rather than the manner of her death. Her mother, Kim Richburg, became the voice of both grief and advocacy, speaking with local media outlets about the profound loss her family endured. She described Ronica as a woman whose life revolved around her children, a devoted mother who had poured her energy into building a stable and loving home.
Today we're here talking about a very, very disturbing homicide that happened in the Avondale area, and I am just very thankful to have the Detective Sergeant Tommy Guy, talking with us today from JPSO on this terrible crime that still the suspect remains at large. So thank you so much, Detective Sergeant Guy. We appreciate you being here. Of course, we're talking about the Ronica Richburg homicide, and this happened in August 25th of this year. But give us a little bit, background about the case and, what we can hopefully have the public help us with.
So on August 25th of this year at about 7:10 p.m., the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office Communications Center received an emergency call from 169 Millie Drive. The 911 caller reported a double shooting at the location. Members of our 3rd District Patrol Division responded to said location and ultimately located 2 shooting victims. Miss Richburg, as we already know, was found deceased on the scene, and also her father was shot at the location, and he survived his injuries. Unfortunately, he has some permanent disfigurement from his injuries. This case was it wasn't a difficult case as it pertains to our job. We very quickly were able to identify a suspect in this case. What was difficult for us was the circumstances that surrounded the case. This was a horrendous crime. We had, seasoned investigators who were on scene and absolutely had an emotional attachment to the family and their sufferings. Obviously, our victim, we use that term as a lot, but it's more than just a general phrase to us. Our victims, every homicide detectives that work these cases, they absolutely take a personal interest in what we do. And we always say we work for the families, and we do. And in this case, the family is the victim. So ultimately, we were able to establish that Miss Richburg's ex-boyfriend, the father of her child, shot her in the head and killed her and also her father. We have made numerous attempts locally and also through the U.S. Marshal Service to try to locate Mr. Jones, and we've been unsuccessful.
For those who are watching this, he's 42 years old. He had a relationship as the boyfriend with Mrs. Richburg for a while. And what's really sad about this case is there was a restraining order against him from being close to the victim. And he pushed his way into this home, from what the mother said of the victim, and the 4-year-old was there. So all of this happened in front of this baby. So I know as detectives dealing with this, I mean, that's brutal for you guys to walk into that. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, having the child there and just...
doing this long enough, the one thing I've found out about being a homicide detective is you have to be at your best when things are at their absolute worst. And if you can't do that, then you're going to have a very difficult time being a homicide detective. And for us, we have to be able to have the ability to just distance ourselves from the circumstances, kind of block it out, and just focus on the work. That becomes very difficult at times. It's unfortunately something we have to do, and it doesn't really hit us until you go home and you see your own children, and you have a moment to actually process exactly what happens. But when you can get past that and you can do your job, you get satisfaction at the thought and the knowledge that if you do your job correctly and you do it right, and you cross your T's, you dot your I's, and you get the conviction at the end of the day, that person can never hurt anybody else.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you to you and your team, and because you're right. I mean, this just was a horrible thing to consider that somebody was capable of doing this and going in with the direct intent of harming these individuals. And Miss Richburg was a beautiful young lady and had her own hair business. And her mom, literally risked her life to save her boyfriend's husband's life. So just everything around this, as a community, we're all there for the family, and we're urging anyone who knows the possible location of this gentleman, Lloyd Jones, to please let us know. I don't know how much new information has been coming into you guys. There's a little bit of time that's passed, but sometimes that helps when the time has passed, that people feel a little bit more comfortable giving that tip that's going to help solve this.
Absolutely. Any information that we can get that can help us locate this individual would definitely be helping. Personally for us, every moment that individual spends on the street is another moment that he's not paying for what he did. So we also want to have him arrested so we can start the legal process and we can start moving forward. I know from my own personal experience with numerous cases, I tell families all the time, we can't bring your loved one back. We can try to give you some closure. Unfortunately, we can't give them that closure until we start the process.
So in this case, when this individual is apprehended, and he will be apprehended, he's going to be wanted for first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, home invasion, obstruction of justice, and certainly violation of a protective order and having a firearm. Serious charges. We thank you again for the work that you're doing on this to find justice, and we're going to show that flyer one more time and hope that anybody with that information give us a call. It's very important.
The community's response was immediate. Neighbors organized support efforts, providing meals, childcare, and assistance to Ronica's grieving family. Local churches and community centers hosted vigils, giving residents a place to gather, mourn, and remember the woman whose life had touched so many. On social media, the story prompted an outpouring of sorrow and anger. Many commented on the bravery Ronica had shown in seeking a protective order against her abusive ex-boyfriend, emphasizing the need for better protections for survivors of domestic violence. A year after the shooting, the family held a memorial at Providence Cemetery, releasing balloons in Ronica's honor. Friends and family celebrated her life, cherishing the joy she brought to those around her and acknowledging the life she had built, even amidst personal struggles. The release of balloons was both a tribute and a symbolic reminder that her memory would continue to inspire loved ones and the community. As authorities pursue Lloyd Jones, the community remains steadfast. Tips continue to flow into the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office and Crime Stoppers, fueled by a desire for justice and accountability. Sadly, Lloyd was never found. As of the upload of this video, 5 years after the murder in Avondale, Louisiana, he remains a fugitive and is still wanted by the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. The loss of Ronica left her mother heartbroken. She spoke openly about the pain of losing her daughter, remembering her as a gentle, caring woman whose greatest priority had always been her children. In her reflections, she expressed deep anger toward Lloyd, the man responsible for the tragedy, saying he had never truly valued Ronica despite the years they spent together. Her words carried a call for justice, a demand that he be held accountable and made to face the consequences of his actions. Beyond her own grief, she also described the lasting impact on Ronica's children. Having been exposed to the violence and chaos of that night, they were left with emotional wounds that would not easily heal. For her mother, the devastation was twofold, mourning the loss of her daughter while witnessing the trauma carried by her grandchildren. On September 5, 2020, Ronica was laid to rest. On the day of her funeral, a solemn procession of family, friends, and loved ones gathered to say their final goodbyes. The church was filled with mourners who would come to pay their respects to a woman taken too soon. Friends, family, colleagues, and community members filled the church to capacity, honoring Ronica's life and legacy. Floral arrangements, balloons, and photographs lined the sanctuary, each telling a story of the woman who had been taken too soon. Her children, now motherless, were surrounded by relatives who pledged to provide the care and guidance that Ronica had once given them. Community leaders emphasized the importance of supporting these children who had witnessed unimaginable violence and ensuring they received counseling and stability in the months and years to come. Advocacy organizations used the tragedy to highlight systemic gaps. Domestic violence shelters, legal aid groups, and social service agencies called attention to the critical importance of restraining orders, the need for emergency intervention, and the necessity of education campaigns to help communities recognize the early signs of abuse. In Ronica's case, her proactive steps, securing a restraining order, documenting harassment, and seeking help, demonstrated courage, yet the violent outcome underscored the limitations of existing protective mechanisms. The public dialogue also extended to online platforms where users shared resources, guidance, and support for those experiencing domestic abuse. Many echoed Kim Richburg's words, urging people to take threats seriously, to document incidents, and to involve law enforcement whenever safety is at risk. There was a consistent call to action. Never underestimate the danger posed by an abusive partner, and always advocate for stronger legal protections. This case also underscores the ongoing dangers and challenges faced by survivors of domestic violence. Ronica's attempt to protect herself and her family through a legal mechanism, a protective order, was tragically insufficient against the extreme measures taken by her ex-boyfriend. Her death serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, community support, and the need for authorities to respond decisively to threats, especially when children are involved. Ronica Richburg's story is not just a statistic. She was a mother, a daughter, a businesswoman, and a neighbor. Her death was violent, sudden, and preventable. It left children without a mother, a family without a daughter, and a community shocked by the brutality of one man's actions. For Ronica's extended family and friends, every day is a reminder of the loss, the unanswered questions, and the quest for justice. Authorities continue to urge anyone with information about Lloyd Jones's whereabouts to come forward, emphasizing the urgency of preventing further harm and ensuring accountability for this horrific crime. Ronica Richburg's life, though tragically cut short, serves as a testament to the resilience, love, and determination of a mother committed to her children and her community. As law enforcement works tirelessly to bring her killer to justice, her story remains a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the ongoing struggle against domestic violence that affects families across the nation. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.